Welcome to the show, All Things Writing. I am your host, Brian the Writer. Let me take you on a journey through my writing life and introduce you to some of the amazing talent that exists in the writing world. Whether you are looking for a little advice or just to catch an interesting interview, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All Things Writing starts now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to All Things Writing. I'm your host, Brian the Writer. Today's episode comes a little bit from an observation, actually a conversation I had with somebody recently about it's a friend of mine who pointed out that there was a reviewer out there who was posting reviews, supposed reviews. I'm going to say supposed reviews on books where they found the author to be detestable. They didn't like the author because of one view they held or another. I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I've posted in the past about the idea of writing reviews, writing book reviews. And as I have brought up more than once, writing reviews is a very, very simple thing. All you really need to do is make a short, sweet, small statement about the book. You liked it. I liked this book. It was great. I enjoyed it. Give it a few stars and off you go. Sure, you could do more than that. As a matter of fact, I would argue that you should, talk a little bit about why you liked the book. Was the writing good? Was the writing solid? Maybe the writing wasn't solid, but the story was. It's up to you. But the reality is that book reviews are terribly important. So what is a book review? A book review is where somebody is taking a critical look at a book and making comments about the book itself, the storyline. In some cases, they're looking at nonfiction, and because of that, they're making judgments about how how that particular piece is written. It's very, very important for people to sit down, my humble opinion, to sit down before you write a book review and seriously consider why you're writing it. I've seen it happen. I've been the victim of it, where people have written book reviews about one of my books, and it was clear to me they didn't even read it. They were doing nothing more than going through the countryside looking for books and writing reviews about books that they had never read. And they were terrible, nasty reviews. I don't even understand what would compel anyone to do something like that. But people do it. People do it. So my advice on writing reviews is, I guess, the first bit of advice I would give is make sure you actually read the book. It's kind of and those of you who are watching this video are going to say, well, that's sort of a no-brainer. Yeah, of course you're gonna read the book first. Okay, that's good advice. But I would also say that and this is hard to do in the modern era because we have a nasty habit of not being able to separate the author from the written word. And we tend to look at the author, whatever the author has done, on a personal level out on the world, as emblematic of how that review should be written. And that was actually what started the whole conversation I had with a friend. He was talking about how it was that a book reviewer, supposed book reviewer with lots of followers, was basically, and forgive my French, shit canned. I know that's not French. Not sure what that would be in French. But they had written a terrible review about this book. And it was nothing more than just a diatribe about how this particular author supported this viewpoint, and they didn't agree with that because that viewpoint was negative and that was bad and blah, blah, blah. I want to go back in history just a little bit and talk about this phenomenon, because I have in my collection here at home something I've read. This is the Call of Cthulhu, the collection, and other weird stories. This was a new collection of Lovecraftian tales, or Lovecraft's tales. Um, and I think it's really, really important that when we talk about Lovecraft, he's almost the poster child for this argument. You have to separate the author from the story themselves. Lovecraft is notoriously racist. If you read some of the stories in here, his racism is very evident on the page. In the way he characterized black people and people who were not white, basically. Um, these are by no means acceptable things, but Lovecraft was a product of his time, and that was not uncommon at that time. But nobody would argue that Lovecraft did not actually impact the horror genre in almost in an earthquake style way. Um, he changed the way we view monster literature, and kind of that dark sense of foreboding. He perfected this idea that you can be afraid of something you don't even see, and I think that is important. That's very, very important to take into consideration when you're writing. If you were to write a review of Lovecraft's works today, which were written, a long time ago, and you can't. Well, first of all, Lovecraft isn't going to care; he's dead. Uh, but the other thing that's important to realize is that you have to encapsulate that in the time period in which it was. The same can be said of the works of Edgar Allan Poe. Poe was not a moral beacon for the world. He had his habits, and he drank, and he was a fighter. There are some stories that say he was a fighter. Um, he he had his issues just like everybody else does. That's not to say in today's world we should let people get away with things like uh, rampant racism in writing. Where we see it, we should call it out, but consider first where the context in which it's written. Context is important. Context matters. um, Tom Sawyer is another really great example of a book where we they tried to have it banned. They successfully had it banned in some schools. Which, by the way, I'm completely and totally against banning books fully and completely. We ban books at our own peril. You really can't do that. So I have nothing but complete and total disdain for anyone who would write a review which targets the personality, the human being that is the writer, rather than the story. Um, that is somebody who is weak minded and a coward. Um, so there's no reason for that in civilized society. If the writing is poor, if the writing is nonsensical and stupid, um, then yes, definitely call it out. Definitely. But focus on the writing and the storytelling craft that this person is using. Because I think if you don't, what you end up with is like a lot of reviews out there. You end up with reviews that are essentially worthless and don't do anybody any good at all. Um, I've heard it said that books at Amazon that have over 20 reviews um, meet with some algorithm, and suddenly the pearly gates open and gold floods out. I don't know, something like that. But the reality is that we should not be in search of any and all reviews when those reviews are written badly and written inaccurately. I encourage you, by the way, if you see a review out there which is not actually reviewing the book and is just a targeted attempt at shooting the author for whatever reason, call them out on it. Call the you can report that up to Amazon, and if Amazon agrees, they'll take it down. In my case, by the way, they did take it down because it was clear this person had never read the book. As a matter of fact, if you had read the back of the book, have even gone that far, you would have realized that that review had nothing to do with anything that I had written. So anyway, that is it's a short little all things writing on this very, very poignant topic. And I think especially in these times, it's very, very easy to want to snipe. And we snipe at each other with impunity because of social media. By the way, people who snipe on social media are just cowards. They're not worth my time. That's not an okay behavior. I think it's also really important that we consider our words. Before you hit post on anything that you put out there, go back and read it. Think very carefully whether or not what you're putting out there is productive. Is it adding, or just being a giant bag of you-know-whats? Because that's not cool. That's not cool. Anyway, and another thing too, I want to just suggest, if you haven't had a chance to run over and look at my Patreon site, please do so. Take a look at my Patreon site and consider supporting me. I'd really appreciate it. I'm actually just about to sit down and write out a short little story about, I'm going to do a Thanksgiving story. I'm not sure if it's going to be horror or not. It may just be a story. I'm not even sure what to call it yet. I have kind of an idea wandering around in my head about the story that I want to write. But I'm only going to release it on Patreon, so you have to come there and find out. Got a lot of stuff on Patreon, by the way, that you can come check out. I do post videos there. I do do some instructional things. I may I may actually redo my review video that I've done before, and that way I can have it available there for people to look at. So anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for checking in with me. I really appreciate it. This is Brian the Writer with All Things Writing, signing off. This has been another amazing episode of All Things Writing. If you heard something that got your wheels spinning, check out the links in the show notes. Also, please follow the show and remember to leave those reviews. Those simple acts of kindness mean the world to us. Hop on over to briannowak.com, and that is Brian with a Y, and check out my latest novels. I'm on Amazon or wherever you buy your ebooks. And as a reminder, the music you heard on the show today was used under license from the artist Ryan Ancona. Thanks for listening to the show, and have a blessed day.